Ahoy there folks, I'm Captain Benzie and welcome to a belated developer Q&A video for Eve Echoes. Normally these videos would go out on a Friday because I get sent the developer Q&A on a Friday, and it is actually Friday with me recording this now. But if you've watched yesterday's video, which was about the Trailblazer and Ascension Nano cores, you'll have heard me say at the beginning that I hadn't been sent the developer Q&A ahead of time like I usually had. I assumed that because there's a big weekend, like a big week-long festival celebration thing, holiday going on in China, that we weren't going to get a developer Q&A, therefore I filmed that other video. It turns out this afternoon I've been sent the developer Q&A, so not only do we get one, it's actually 3 pages long rather than the usual 2, and I think it's 5 or 6 questions this time around. There's a lot to cover in this one. So I'm not going to, linger around with the intro and the opening here. I do the dev Q&A each week because I want to give you an insight into what is happening with game development. I talk from the perspective of someone who has lived around games development and design pretty much my entire adult life. I've known numerous developer studios, I've worked with numerous developer studios, and I can link all the dev Q&As back together with previous knowledge and information. If you want to win a month of Combo Omega, make sure you're commenting on my videos, commenting in the Catskull Discord. And if you do want to have a question answered by the developers, there's a link in the description of this very video that will take you through to a form you can fill in, ask your question there. If that question is chosen, you win a month of Basic Omega, you get your question answered, and you get featured in my video, which is pretty freaking sweet if I do say so myself. Anyway, we're 140 odd into this video, so I'm just going to jump right in now, because there is a lot to cover, and as you can hear, I'm already out of breath. It is the developer Q&A for the week of the 13th to 19th of September. Whew. Our phones have only so much real estate. Being in nullsec requires constant attention to neutrals or reds flying through our systems. This requires us to have the local tab opened up to see if the system has any neuts or reds. Would it be possible to consider changing the total pop displayed to displaying total friendlies, box half green half blue, non-friendlies, box half grey half red? This could improve the quality of life of players and much more immersive experience. Mike Lee says, it's difficult to display more complicated information in a very limited space, but thanks for your feedback. So first things first, we're right out of the gate here with a good-natured question and a half-assed response. So much par for the course, it would seem. So, I kind of understand where this is coming from. Yes, if you're on a smaller phone screen, I'm on an Asus ROG 3, which is a pretty sizable display, but yeah, that local thing does take up a lot of space. I think a better way to do this would simply be to allow you to actually go into each individual element of the user interface, change its opacity, change its text size, things like that. For me personally, I could actually do with the text, if I go into the minimalized version, I could do with the names actually being a touch smaller, because I don't really care about the names. All I mainly care about is how many blues, greens, reds, and greys there are in system. So that information is useful, but I don't think it should just be, I don't know, consider changing the total pop displays to displaying total friendlies and non-friendlies. So that rather than saying, oh, there's 9 people in local, it actually says, oh, there's 4 reds, 4 reds or greys, and then 5 blues or greens. There's an instant display like that. It's an interesting way of doing it. I'm not going to say it's a bad idea. I think it's probably a little bit too much information than you need at an immediate glance. I think having local open should be the way you do that, because this is going to get so much heat. I can tell this is going to get so much heat before I even open my mouth to say it, so fight me, come at me in the comment section. I think that if you want to have information on screen, then absolutely you should be taking up a little bit of your screen in order to do so. Having information is a positive. Every positive should come with a negative, something that makes it so you don't just fly around with it open all the time, and you have to make the conscientious decision to get that information. Oh boy, I can hear the comment section screaming already. I'm not looking forward to this one. I might take the weekend off. But yeah, basically, I am genuinely of the belief, and this is someone who doesn't PvP. Remember, I don't PvP, but I am currently in the middle of a war. I think that if I go out ratting in the middle of a wartime, I should have to have a special window open. Ultimately, I need to be watching that window. Just having a tiny little box in the bottom left that will change its numbers and things to say, oh, you're in danger. It's too easy. And I know that's controversial, but again, I play EVE Online, where not only do you have local, which you can have open to show all of this. Yes, I get it that it's on a PC screen before some of you come at me. Much bigger real estate on the screen there, Benzie. I know. I know. Seriously, I understand that concept. Can't be some slack here. But you'll often have dscan open, and so whilst you're actually doing stuff, especially if you're in wormholes like I am, while you're doing stuff, while you're ratting or exploring or whatever, you'll be using dscan to keep an eye on if anyone else happens to be around you, and it's a very active way of having to play. And I think that's beautiful. Nullsec is not supposed to be stupidly safe. And I get where this is coming from. I understand, believe me, I understand that local box, when you maximize it outwards, does take up a lot of screen space. That's a negative. It's part of the point. In EVE Online, when I do like the hacking and that minigame, when I go exploring and I'm doing the hacking minigame, that pop-up covers most of the screen. When I'm scanning, that covers most of the screen. In EVE Echoes, when I am scanning, it takes up the entire screen. It's not even windowed. That is part of the sort of the pros and cons of information, that you get some additional information at the expense of other information. And I think that just having a way to modify the UI would fix more problems than just this one. And I think this problem, fixing it where you have like the local box split in half, where instead of just, oh, there's 9 people in local, it's there's 5 people who are friendly and 4 people who are possibly hostile. I think that gives away too much information at a quick glance at no negative feedback on it. And yeah, I can hear the comment section, come at me. Question number 2, moving on quickly. Can we please introduce the possibility to scrap or repro old ships I don't use anymore? Stop asking this question, please. Maybe use the same skill as scrap repro and maybe even spice it up with a small chance of getting the rigs back based on repo skill. No, go away with this. You are that is killing it. That Benzie, why do you hate industry so much? And then people come at me with questions like this. Seriously, I don't hate industry. You might sit there and say, oh, I want to help industry. That's why I think we should be able to reprocess our old skill. No, what you're doing is taking a load of ships that are just sitting in your hangar doing nothing, and instead of selling them on the market because you know no one's going to buy them, you're turning them into ores, well, into minerals, which eats into the whole, eats into the miners and industrialists' pie so much. Like, oh, mine. Especially using the same skill as scrap repro. Look, okay, let's see what Mike says on this one, because this is going to get me angry. The best way to deal with old ships now is to sell them on the market to players who need them. But no one does, Mike. No one needs them because you invented a completely messed up tech system. Old ships reprocessing may be added in the future. Please don't. But returning skill points or rigs are not in our plans. Good. That is... no. Never, ever let the rigs come back through reprocessing. Like, geez, you've got a rig market and you're just going to tank that as well. Okay, so what is actually my problem with this? So, if you've got a load of ships sitting in your hangar right now, you could just sit there and go, cool, I'm just going to hit this reprocess button, and suddenly all of my ships turn into large amounts of minerals. Those minerals then flood the market, a market that is already saturated with minerals because we have infinite ore faucets in the game, because the second that a mining belt disappears, a new one spawns. And the fact that when it comes to ratting, you can loot everything and then a new ratting anomaly spawns and you can loot everything and you can reprocess that. We have infinite mineral faucets in this game. Infinite. And anyone who's turning around saying, oh yeah, but I need ion strip miners and things like that. I need to be able to mine. No, you don't need to be able to mine faster. Mining so fast and having so much flooding the system is what is killing industry. Not insurance, not like a lack of consumption, although that is an issue, but it doesn't matter how much consumption you put in the game when the influx is infinite. Like, you can't have an infinite sink, so you need to turn down the infinite faucet. We need to have it. Nina has talked about this at length, and it is so controversial, but it is genuinely what needs to happen. I've gone through so many different options about what other things you could do, and it comes down to one simple thing. Belts need to not instantly spawn. They need to have longer time limits. Make the belts bigger, triple the size of the belts, but put them on a 12 or 24 hour cooldown. Yeah, I know what you're going to say. Oh, but the ratters don't have to, worry about running out of content. No, but us explorers do. And no one's saying you should run out of content. They're just saying you should have to move out of your freaking system once, every now and then. If you have farmed your current system dry, maybe move to the one across. But that one's not very well defended. Then just play better. Just stop asking for fixes to the game that just make things worse. I've said before as well that if you want to get rid of old ships and you want to be selling old ships, make it so that the higher tech system, if we're not getting rid of the tech system, preface this by saying if we're not going to get rid of the god-awful tech system that they've put into play that is probably the one thing killing this game the absolute most right now. We'll come back to that later, because I'm sure it gets referenced in another question. Basically, make it so that a bellicose is required to build a bellicose covert ops, and you need to consume a bellicose covert ops to build a bellicose 2, and you need to consume a bellicose covert ops 2 to build a bellicose covert ops 3. Suddenly you've got a reason to actually buy those smaller ships, those previous tier ships, because they actually have a use. The other big part of that is if you want your old ships to actually have a use, which they genuinely don't right now, maybe we need some new players, right? That might be a way of doing things so that we've got an actual market to sell those crappy old ships to. Yeah, the tech system screws with so much in this game. It is the worst thing about this game, and I am sick of debating that with people. Question number 3. It's very difficult for new players to hold on to the game. There we go, told you it was referenced. Old players hunt new players. Oh my god. It's almost impossible to counter them. You can give some kind of shield for a few days. You can give free gifts, ships, IP, etc. What? Oh my god. Mike Lee says, we've always wanted to teach new players combat skills. For this reason, we have the novice tutorials, fiction wargames, faction wargames, although with how little people use them, it might as well be fiction, to teach new players how to handle various situations in New Eden. We also have rookie packs for them. That's it, Mike Lee. Make sure you point out that people can buy stuff to make the game easier. Such a stupid point. How many people have you ever, like, there's so many people I've spoken to are like, oh, Benzie, you know, I'm so glad to talk to you on Discord. Your videos have really helped me stick around in this game. I've been playing for 5 days now. What do you think of my Vindicator fit? And it's like, wait, what? And it's a Vindicator that's been fit with, like, small and medium missiles, and I just want to scream. And it's because those are good players. They're people who could be sticking around for a while, but they're people, when I say good players, I don't mean they're knowledgeable players. I mean, they're people who you want in your community. They're people who could be good players. They have potential, but when they lose that ship because they've got no freaking clue what's going on and they've spent a ton of real world money on it, then suddenly it feels bad and they quit the game and we lose out on those players. Yeah. And you know what drives people to do that? A tech system. A tech level system that means, oh, if you want to do anything in this game, you're going to need to wait until you're tech level 9, which, by the way, is 8 months into playing the game at this rate. Just, tech level system screws up so much. The answer here of, oh, yeah, people, it's old players hunt new players. New players shouldn't be going into low sec. New players should not be going into low sec or null sec, and if they go into null sec, which in fairness is an option, if they've got a corporation or an alliance around them, that alliance should support them, but alliances don't necessarily like to support them. The amount of times we've had people join Catskull, and it's like their 3rd or 4th corporation by the time they find my channel, come and join Catskull, and they're like, wait, you actually fight for each other? And it's like, yeah, we're here to help each other out. And they're like, oh, my old alliance never used to do that. It's just like, lol, you should have been more careful. It's like, that's not helping new players. Why aren't there any new players in the game? Oh, by the way, we treat new players like crap. Why aren't there new players? What? Yes, it's difficult for new players to hold on to the game, but not because they're being hunted by older players. Please, don't be so stupid on this one. That is a simple situation that new players should either not be in low sec or null sec, or they should be in null sec in a safe environment whilst they're learning the ropes. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree that when the best thing you can fly is a Rupture, and everyone else is flying bellicose covert ops 3s, and Cinnaballs, and Macariels, and stuff like that, it can feel a little bit like, yeah, what do I really do in this game? What am I actually doing? Because I'm pathetic and weak and everyone else around me is so ridiculously strong. That's because of power creep. That's because we have a tech level system that says, oh, by the way, you're in a bellicose covert ops. Well, here's a new bellicose covert ops. It's the same ship, just better. And then here's the bellicose 3 covert ops. It's the same ship again, but even better. It's just a reward. You're going to be better than everyone because you've been playing the game longer and reasons. It's such a terrible system. It is such a terrible system. Tech 7 should be basically the pinnacle of the game. By the time you're hitting Tech 7, you should have every basic ship available to you, and those should be primarily the combat vessels. Basically, the Bellicose Covert Ops should have... Well, the Bellicose Covert Ops 2 and 3 should not exist. They just shouldn't exist. Get rid of those. And move other ships like the Bellicose Interdictor up to those higher tech levels. Basically, I've said this before using the Hurricane as an example. The Hurricane at tech level 7 should be the best Hurricane in terms of raw damage potential and just ratting. It's the straight up combat vessel. Then you should have the Hurricane Logistics and the Hurricane Guardian at higher tech levels that are considerably more specialised, and if we travel back in time to when the Hurricane E-War was in the game, at tech level 10, that should be significantly worse than the Hurricane in terms of DPS or tank, but should have that special E-War capability. Anything above tech level 7 should be a specialist ship that rewards you for deep diving into a skill tree. That's not how it works, of course, is it? No, we have this situation where when you're a new player and you're tech level 5, everyone else is tech level 10. What are you going to do? You cannot compete in anything because the bar is set so stupidly high. Set the bar at tech level 7, or heck, set it at tech level 8 if you absolutely want to guarantee that people are having to pay for Omega. Set the bar at tech level 8, and then 9 and 10 are just the specialty ships. That means suddenly someone who's tech level 5, 6, or 7 is much closer to being at that bar, and it's not a case of my tech level 7 ship gets one shot by something that's tech level 10 and has no chance. A good tech level 7 ship should be able to go fairly toe-to-toe with a tech level 8 ship. The tech 8 has an advantage, but if the tech 7 pilot's better, you can see where I'm going with this. But it's never going to happen because NetEase have outright said, oh no, we're not going to get rid of the tech system. It's like this one thing that is killing the entire game, and NetEase are absolutely set on staying in bed with it. Let's move on before I get angry again. Question number 4 of this massive smorgasbord of questions is, currently there seems to be a disconnect between players and NetEase regarding the future of EVE Echoes. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. That's how this is. Let's go back to that later. Echo's sister project had this very same issue at some point, and thus the Council of Stellar Management, or CSM, was created. Would you consider doing something similar to Echo's so more voices can have a representation and get an actual feel of the community in general, and not just content creators? Oh boy, whoever asked this question, if you think they listen to the content creators, you've got another thing coming. Believe me, if they listen to the content creators, then most of the stuff we've been asking for 2 freaking years now might actually be in-game. We would have the Yan Zheng, we would have Cruiser, Destroyer, and Frigate content, we'd have a Rifter Assault, a Tristan Assault, and stuff like this. You know, that stuff that people keep asking for that 2 years into the game we still don't have? We'd have that now. Instead, the answer here is we will often hold AMA events in the community. Creating New Eden with players has always been one of our visions. Then, if that's one of your visions, then you're walking around with a blindfold on, NetEase. Like, I love this community, I love the game devs, I love speaking with them, but it is so frustrating. Basically, the devs have 2 things. They have their own vision, and then they have the game data. And the game data, they don't seem to understand how to read. And I don't mean that just as a case of, oh, missiles are absolute crap because the devs don't understand how missile application works, although that would be an accurate point. What I mean is, they look at the data and say, well, everyone's flying battleships, therefore we should supply more battleship content, without realizing the only reason that people, everyone is flying battleships because there's nothing else to do. There's nothing else to do. What are you going to do? If you decide, oh, I don't want to fly battleships, well, what content do you have? You don't. So it's what's called survivorship bias. You're looking at the data only of the people who survived the situation that you've put out in front of them, and then you're building based on that. You're not including the fact that you've got a system set up and people are bouncing off it. You're not looking at why people might be bouncing off it. This came from a World War II thing where the Italians, or some Italian guy was looking at planes and saying, oh, well, you know, if you look at the shots on the planes, you can see that they are mostly congregated in these areas. So those are the parts that we should reinforce, without realizing that the areas that very rarely came back with shots on were because those, if you got shot there, your plane went down, so they weren't getting that back as data. Those were just failed projects. Those were aircraft that went out or shot down because they were hitting weak points and never came back, so you never got the data of where the kill shots were, basically. And that's what's going on here. They're looking at the data without actually proper analysing it. Then they listen to the community too much in regards to certain things. Again, Benzie's going to go and talk about that April balance patch. The balance patch where they nerfed the flight speed of every single ship in the game dramatically. Missiles actually applied their damage. Like, medium and large missiles properly applied their damage at this point. It was amazing. It really worked. I'm someone who flies small, fast-moving ships. Speed tanking is my thing. Not a single one of the ships that I speed tank with had any issues speed tanking. But the ones that probably shouldn't really be speed tanking just didn't anymore. And it fixed so much in the game. But because some little bitches went onto Reddit and just started crying their poor little heart out that, oh no, my easy win mode intercept is not going to just completely cover up for the fact that I'm crap at the game. They cried on Reddit, and enough of the developers listened to that and they rolled it back. I've spoken with the devs. They have confirmed that the reason that was rolled back was due to player outcry. And the wonderful thing about that player outcry, I didn't find a single one of those outcry messages that was from someone actually running the test server. Every single time it was someone who's, I'm not on the test server, but my opinion matters. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Can you imagine writing to a scientific journal and saying, oh, I've not actually run any experiments, but this guy is completely wrong. The guy who's done this, complete journal entry and that he's published his paper, he's completely wrong, even though I've not tried any. You'd be laughed out of the freaking building. So why does this community insist that they can do this? It's terrible. Devs shouldn't be listening to that. Should the devs have a CSM? Yes. Should I be on that CSM? That's up to you guys. You get to vote on that if they do a CSM. The developers, however, have confirmed they will not do a CSM. They won't even ask us as the content creators what our actual opinions are on something ahead of time. I signed an NDA when I started doing content for Eve Echoes. Do you know how many times I've had to use that? Once. Literally once. There was a point way back when, before Faction Wargames came out, that myself and a load of non-content creators were pulled in to test out the arena mode and just to see and give some feedback on it and see what we thought. That is the only time the NDA that I've signed has ever come into play. Other than that, yeah. I've never had anything that I've been told, oh, you can't say ahead of time. I've just never had information ahead of time. It doesn't happen. The devs don't come to the content creators for feedback. They don't go to the community for feedback. They just do shit and then wait for the community to scream and then either undo it or do more of it, depending on which way the community screams. It's such a terrible way of game design. You're never going to get a CSM. I've asked for it dozens of times before eventually being told flat out, it's not going to happen. Please stop asking. And as they say here, apparently an AMA is the way to go forward. Asking the devs questions is how we have our voice heard. Yeah, because that's ever done so much. How many times have we asked about the Yanjung? Are they in yet? How many times have we asked about anything other than freaking battleships? Is it there yet? Asking about the Rifter Assault, has it been fixed? Asking about changes to industry to actually make it work. Has any of it happened? The amount of data we throw at the developers and they just outright ignore because it doesn't fit with their vision. So quite frankly, again, I love the developers, but please, this idea that creating New Eden with players has been one of our visions. No, it hasn't. Please stop lying through your teeth. If that was a vision, you'd be communicating and listening and responding. There'd be a conversation going on. There's not a conversation. There's occasionally a Q&A. That's a different thing. Moving on then to question number, what are we on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Question number 5. Phew, this is a long one. When are you going to add gunshot sounds to capital ship weapons? Eve has a very wide range of weapons and sounds as well as modules, each with its sound, which makes the game fun to play. For example, spending 2 hours at a rally point shooting without any sound is extremely annoying and tedious, as is reading an entire paragraph that is one sentence, I might add. I love the sounds and animation of the weapons in this game, and when I got to the capital ship where I expected to shoot with an incredible sound, it doesn't have it. It's silent. Okay, that's a bit unfair of me. I get that English isn't everyone's first language, and I'm sorry, I take that bit back. It's just I get frustrated when people talk about, like, capital ships, I think, and this entire video so far has got me pretty frustrated. 1, because it was a delayed, thing from the developers, and 2, because it's just so infuriating answering these same questions over and over and having the devs give the same, just non-answers. Now look, the first part of me wants to say that actually none of the weapons should have sounds. Space is a vacuum. Sound doesn't travel through space. Therefore, you blow up a ship in space, there's no sound. So actually capitals are the one thing that are actually, scientifically accurate. On the other hand, I also really love the sound of cannon fire. I love the sound of my medium cannons. I love the sound of my large cannons. There's so many good sounds in this game when it comes to combat. And sadly, missiles still have that horrible, whooshy, hollow sound to them. Yeah, I like a good bit of sound design in EVE, so yeah, I think this is genuinely a good question. It does feel like hashtag first world problems. Oh no, my capital ship can do everything except make me happy with the sounds. But I get that. I genuinely do get that. And I'm trying to not belittle that because I have a vehement hate of capital ships right now. Every time I look back on what's happened since they launched, that is the point of the game where everything went completely downhill. Look at how EVE Echoes was before capitals. Look at it is after capitals. Capitals now just dominate everything from PvE to PvP. They dominate the discussion. I responded to a post on Reddit recently where I likened the addition of capitals to building the tower higher when the foundations were barely able to support what we had to begin with. And now people are after super carriers and force auxiliaries and titans and stuff like this. That's just further building the tower up while those foundations are still shallow and shaky. Things at the bottom need fixing first, but I do also agree this is a good suggestion. We should have sounds for this, and the fact that Mike Lee says thank you for your feedback, this is not in our development plan. A couple of dev Q&As ago, you guys were saying, oh, it's great that you guys are really enjoying the sounds that we're putting into the game. Stand by, we've got a whole lot more coming, apparently except if you fly a dreadnought. This is the one thing that I'm actually going to say. You know what, Capital Pilots? I feel bad for you. I genuinely feel bad. And Naglfar should have an amazing cannon sound to it. It should. When a Revelation fires, it should sound like someone turning a flashlight on and off, or heck, maybe it should play ABBA or some equally obnoxious disco light sounds. I don't know. When a railgun goes off, that should have the sound, theoretically, of all those capacitor banks charging up and launching a metal slug the size of a city into the nearby ships. This should be represented in the game, and NetEase have sat there and said, actually, sound design is something we're really proud of and we want to do more of it. Now Mike Lee's saying, nah, sound design, who cares? What? So, whoever wrote this question, if you're watching this video, I'm sorry for picking apart your grammar earlier. I'm in a bad mood from the start of this video. I think this is a really good suggestion. This couldn't be too hard to implement because I know what it takes to add new sounds to a game, genuinely. This is actually one of the few bits of games dev that's not difficult. It's actually really quite simple. But no, it's not on the plan. They're not doing it. Sorry. Question number 6. Containers. Will you be adding this item in the future? It'd be nice to be able to manage your inventory in a different way than using a filter. Frickin' men. Mike Lee, it's already scheduled. Stay tuned. Huzzah, we're getting containers. First bit of good news I've had in this game for quite some time, and it's a freaking quality of life change. Now, before some people get really mad at this, containers are something that should be built by industry. They should be sold on the market. They should then be installed in a station and thus not movable after. That is how they work. They become an sync for industry. It's not something that everyone should have instant access to, but I know, I can just see the second these get added to the game, people going, NetEase is selling containers. No, they shouldn't sell the containers for Aurum. They should be available on the market for ISK, made by previous industrial pilots. Make that happen. Benzie will be happy. Final question, question number 7. Autopilot system, prefer shorter mode, should calculate the different space, speed in different security area. In current system, shorter distances don't equal shorter time sometimes. This is a good suggestion, says Mike Lee. We'll consider adding this feature to the game. Yeah, one of the key important things that we need right now is to make sure that your autopilot is just that little bit faster. Get rid of this whole thing and just allow us to plot our own courses. Let us actually open up the star map and plot our own courses, rather than just pressing a button and letting the game do everything for us. I get it. This isn't a terrible suggestion. I'm not belittling the person who's made this suggestion. I do think that if you're going to have a prefer shorter, it should take into account the size of the system, the amount of jumps, how long those jumps are going to take, including the fact that low sec is a 50% speed boost and high sec is a 100% speed boost. Therefore, there are some times when it is going to be faster to do more jumps because they're at 100% speed, whereas the other route would take you through several low sec systems that are only at 50% speed and they're bigger systems, so the overall travel time Think of it this way. It might be longer geographically to drive around the entire M25, but you can theoretically do that at 70 miles an hour, whereas driving through central London is faster as the crow flies, but most of that you can do maybe 50, and there's going to be traffic, and it's a lot more windy and things like this. So that's kind of why I agree with this. I agree that, yeah, it should take into consideration the speed that you're actually going to fly and the size of the systems. I just also think that we should just do away with the autopilot system as it currently is and allow, or not even do away with, keep it. Just add the ability to manually plot your own courses. That shouldn't be as controversial or difficult a topic to broach as it is, and it just amazes me that it is. I don't know, folks. There we are. That's the end of this developer Q&A. You can see I can't scroll any further. 7 questions, was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions. That's a lot for a developer Q&A, and I hate nearly all of them. Oh, I don't hate the questions. I more hate the developers' answers and just the state that the game is currently in. The game, to me, look, I love this game to pieces, and I know that I get people in the comment section every time I do a video like this saying, hey, Benzie, maybe you should take a week off to chill out. I've done that before. The trouble is, if I take a week off to chill out, I start stressing because my content numbers go down and thus my paycheck declines. And I'm okay. I'm just coming to terms with the fact that I can love this game. I can really enjoy talking with the developers, but I also have to come to terms with the fact that I may have concepts and ideas for this, and I need to do a video like Sheev did where I talk about what my actual personal vision for Echoes would be. What really grates my gears is that I play EVE Online a lot. I play Echoes a lot. I love this universe. I love these games, and I see what Echoes could be. I'm not saying I want Echoes to be EVE Online. I have never said that. I think Echoes needs to be its own thing, and it can do things in different ways. I think, like, for example, our scanning is fine. I think the fact that we have strikers instead of marauders is fine. I think the slimmed down tech tree, skill tree, is fine. I just think there are certain systems at play in Echoes that are absolutely devastating to the game. I even quite like nanocores. I think that's something that EVE Online could probably benefit from, though they'd never have it because it'd be seen as pay to win. What gets me about Echoes is I know what this game could be, and I'm sitting here looking at it, wishing I had the kind of influence that the person in question number 4, yeah, the person in question number 4 here, I wish I had that kind of level of influence. I genuinely wish I had that level of influence. I wish I had any influence over the developers at this stage, to be completely honest, but I can see what this game could be. And it just feels like there is so much potential that is just being wasted with these short-term, short-sighted, just almost nihilistic decisions. And you can say, oh, NetEase are only doing it for the money. Yeah, you know what? If you can keep a game alive for 20 years like CCP have, that makes a lot more money than selling a few ships for $100 a pop and then having the game closed down because everyone quit. It's short-sighted. It just feels like so much wasted potential, and it is thoroughly heartbreaking. Genuinely heartbreaking. Anyway, I wish I could leave this video on a slightly more excitable note than I have just given, so I'm just going to say, look at the pretty picture. Look at the Naglfar, it's Cloud Ring. Isn't Cloud Ring beautiful? Look at the Naglfars and the Augurer for some reason that's right there, and some other pretty ships. Isn't this game pretty? Peace out, folks. Happy sailing, and see you in New Eden.